want to know. But
can you remember? I mean, what happened when you?
Right.
Were you just sort of taken out? Did somebody say pack up? We're
Yes.
going somewhere, and not
Yes.
tell you where you're going?
Oh yeah. Well, we had an idea that we were moving out of Shanghai. We were thinking of Shanghai because there weren't enough open compounds to house everybody, and we had to meet with all our. We were allowed to take one trunk each, kind of thing, and iron bedsteads. We all had to congregate at this point. And then we were taken by lorry. And I don't know whether Frank can remember this, but in those days, health and safety regulations didn't exist. And this lorry was just piled with all these boxes. There were 2 or 3 of us on the top. So that as the lorry turned corners, we could hang on to the boxes so that they
keep the boxes on.
Yeah. And then, of course, the last bit of the journey was a lovely one on a narrow boat or barge or whatever along this canal to the camp. And the thing that also amused everybody at the time, we thought this place was peppered with pagodas, but we were actually seeing the same one because the canal twisted so much. We kept seeing this pagoda in a different direction. We thought so, and then of course we arrived at camp, and then we had to. There were again lorries to take the heavy loads to the camp, and then we arrived. We were all lined up. Commandant spoke to us, welcoming us to the camp, and made it very clear that if you try to escape, you'll be shot.
And how old were you?
I was about 13, 14, yeah.
How did you feel about having to leave home like that?
Well, I mean, at that age, that sort of thing doesn't really worry.
It was probably like an adventure.
It was. In many ways, we enjoyed ourselves because where else would you get a group of teenagers, all the same age, all housed together?
No school.
Well, no, the camp did have a school. The British consulate ensured that each camp had its proportion of doctors and teachers or whatever. And if you're under 16, you could carry on the school. Frank was borderline, and Frank chose not to. But I carried on the school. In fact, I got a very interesting certificate. The headmaster, of all things, was the headmaster of the Cathedral Boys' School in Shanghai, the Reverend Matthews. And he and his teaching colleagues purposely set the equivalent of a specific exam at a high level. And after the war, he took it back to Cambridge and had a certificate in Cambridge, saying that this was an exam taken in camp, but after the 70s.
And what was the camp called again?
Yangchao Camp C. There were 3 camps.
How do you spell Yangchao?
Iangchow. And there were 3 camps. Ours was the largest. We had about 600, just over 600. A had about 350. B had about 250. And then halfway through, a party of Belgians were also interned in our camp as well. So the numbers increased about 650. But the most amusing thing, if I can now sort of fast forward to the end of the war, we didn't realize the war ended for about 2 weeks after it actually ended. We heard rumors, but the Japanese wouldn't say anything. And then, so you remember this, a British Army colonel came along to address us, to tell us that, to assure us that our government hadn't forgotten us. But an arrangement was made that the British would free all the camps in Hong Kong and South, and the Americans would free all the camps north of Hong Kong. So we all, and he said you can expect them in the course of the next 3 or 4 days. And we were looking forward to a smart battalion of Americans come along to take over from the Japanese. Because the Japanese had to stay there because we were frightened of problems with the local Chinese trying to break into the camp now after the war was over to pilfer or whatever. Anyway, much to our horror, 8 Americans came in 16 rickshaws. 8 rickshaws to carry themselves and 8 rickshaws to carry the belongings. They did march in. And so there's a sort of real sort of disappointed air about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we realised afterwards that it was, in a sense, the best way, because the Japanese felt even more insulted. They had to hand over to
some rickshaws.
7, 8 sort of a full battalion.
and then, of course,
Yeah.
the Red Cross were going to supply us with all sorts of goodies. And I can remember they came over in C-54, where the bomb door just opened at the bottom. And they had huge pallets.
You got the tape going then?
I
Yes,
have
yes.
Yeah.
Huge pallets with a parachute at each corner. And then on the pallet would be loads of K rations, 45-gallon drums filled with cans of tomato soups and all sorts of
Not Coca-Cola.
no. And we're asked to paint P-O-W on our largest roof, and also line sheets to spell those 3 letters on the largest field. But of course, the camp wasn't that big. And fortunately, everybody was out looking at these drops. And where they had 2 45-gallon drums welded together, filled with cans of tomato soup, pineapples, whatever, they snapped the chutes as the parachute opened the little straps and pierced it right through the peak, right through the flat floor, and finally to rest. So that was a 3-story building, did the rest on the floor. But at the same time, the other parcels were dropping, and it was particularly dangerous. So then they radioed the air crew not to do that, drop it outside the camp. Because outside the camp was the ancient city of Yangqiao, with these flimsy houses and tiled roofs and it caused more damage than the war ever did. And finally, they were asked to drop it right outside in the fields. And they had a few jeeps, and we went out. And we gathered them all together while the jeeps ferried them back to the camp. I can remember sitting on this pile of K rations and things. I suddenly saw about 20 to 30 Chinese rushing up toward me with knives in their hand. I thought, God, what's this? And what it was, they wanted the parachute straps because they use that for their trousers, And that's all they wanted. So I said, help yourself, help it.
What did K stand for? Why was it K rush?
K rush, I don't know.
It's always called K.
Yeah. I can't know.
I mean, certain things we could work out international years of one cheap.
Yeah.
Cheap comes from general purpose vehicle.
Yeah.
Cheap PDF, so that cheap.
GI is general issue.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's more,
Something called the general-
when I visited America, this has nothing to do with
Well,
the
what-
camp, but
what does a K do?
I went to
Calories.
this place.
No,
you-
press the pause button.
Yeah. But also, Yangqiao was at one time capital of China. Yeah, and Marco Polo was at one time provincial governor of Yangqiao. So
I'm surprised because you see, they've got eyes. Because the Mongol.
yeah, I know.
That's why I'm surprised.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I'm not saying like a Nanking.
Well, it's just it's,
Nanking is South capital. Peking is actually Beijing.
Yeah,
It's
Beijing.
North capital.
yeah, that's right.
And we used to have, Chiang Kai-shek,
Yeah,
But at that period, that was the link.
yeah,
Link with the Mongol.
yeah. I know.
I'm surprised that it would be up to them the facts and story like that. I'm surprised.
But Frank and I had some really amusing tales.
It's no.
Yeah. The being the largest of the 3 camps, we had a small hospital. So if anybody was very ill in one of the other camps, they would have a stretcher party, bring them along to our camp, our doctors looked after them. On this occasion, the stretcher party came, and we looked after the stretcher carriers or the stretcher bearers. We took them to our refectory for lunch. And they said to us, funny, why is it you aren't using your red enamel plates and mugs? Red on the outside, white on the inside, of course, and the same on the plates, the red underneath, the white bottom. And we said, We weren't, we weren't given any. Oh, the International Red Cross or whatever supplied every internee with a mug and a plate. So anyway, there were a few sort of small outhouses by one of the entrances. And one day we looked in through the boarded windows, we saw these stacks and stacks of plates and mugs. And our supply officer was a real scoundrel. He was keeping all this for himself, you see. So we decided to break in just to get what was our due, which is a mug and a plate. And there's a chap called Ian McKinnon, Frank and I, all decided to do it. Now, Ian's father was very ill and he had to go back to Shanghai, and his mother went with him. So he then was billeted with another family called the Goodwins. And we arranged to wake up very early the next morning to break in and help ourselves to our due in terms of marketplace. But Ian didn't turn up, so later on the day we said, what happened? He said, I didn't wake up. So the next day we arranged. It used to be a middle school, and this was where they lived, was the dormitory part. That was a smallish room that would normally house one person, presumably, but houses Goodwin family of four plus Ian McKinnon. And the door had one of these skylights. So he tied a string to his big toe, and he threaded this little skylight last thing at night, and we went and gave him 2 toes and woke him up. And then we went, and we then broke in. Frank went in. And we helped ourselves to a mug each. We said, Frank, let's go now. Frank said, oh, no, there's a wire here. Now in camp, things like wire, it's very precious. So he began to feed this wire through a little keyhole, and I was curling up and we suddenly heard these footsteps. God, because it's the Japanese quarters.
Yeah.
At the very least, and it turned out to be a chap called Jumbo Crank.
Jumbo Crank.
Jumbo Crank, who was a young Scottish man, and Jumbo being his nickname, and he looked after the herd of goats, and Ian McKinnon worked with him, looking after his goats. It was him. And then he insisted that, because we had just about climbed out of the window by then, insisted Frank went back in to steal him a set, and we did that. But of course we could never use it until after the war, because we didn't receive it.
You haven't kept them, it's a shame, really. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But how many people were there roughly? 600?
Well, then with the Belgians, it was almost 650 in our camp.
40 Belgians.
And then there's 250 in one of the other 2 camps. But they went back to Shanghai for some of them reason. They found room. So we thought of ourselves as a forgotten 600. But we benefited because when they dropped all these food for us, they dropped 1,200. They dropped enough for 1,200 people, thinking that there's still 1,200 people in the
But did the Japanese take over some existing houses and turn that into a camp?
Yeah,
No. This was a Chinese middle school.
Oh, I see.
It was a walled middle school.
It was a wonderful school, missionary.
Yeah. But it was for middle school years, and it had a little church, as well as the chapel. The church bigger about the Japanese.
It was a boarding school.
Well, yeah, because where we lived were the classrooms, and about 16 people. But where the Goodwins lived, for instance, was like the dormitory type. Anyway, what I was serious, there's one part of the camp, like, we've got a map of it, called the piggeries. It used to be, Yangzhou was the pig rearing area of China. In fact, that's why the only meat we ever had while we were there was pork. And we turned this piggery into a camp garden. The chap called Hay, another Scotsman, who we sort of garden. We grew tomatoes there. But very cool. Well, Hay was named tomato. Anyway, he insisted we riddle the ground and remove all the stones and we feet up against the walls. So when we realized the war had ended, the Japanese still wouldn't let us out. Again, Frank, Ian, and I thought, blow this. Let's climb over the wall, because with a heap of stone, it's quite easy. And walk around Yangchao, you see. So we did this.
What you risking?
Again, we were risking things. And we were walking around Yangchao, streets of Yangchao. We heard these English voices. We turned the corner, only to discover the Japanese were allowing the internees to actually visit yet. But the laugh was, they must have counted X numbers going out, but they counted 3 more coming in, and that really puzzled them.
So did you have electricity all the time there? Or
Yes. There was
running
no.
water and things like that?
Well, no. There were artesian wells, and and some of the main ones would, pump.
They dug some more wells.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was a shower block. And, the water would be pumped to overhead tank. But we, in fact, I was a member of what was called Night Hawks, which was just a gang of rowdy boys making nuisance of themselves. One day, one of the nurses said, look, the water supply in the hospital tank was very low. Could we help? And so we formed a chain gang. And then this became a regular thing, and then we began to do other good things. And then our reputation changed, and this book that we got, when the camp ended, shows a picture of the British camp commandant, the camp representative, a chap called Grant, had his picture taken with the Night Hawks in the flag. So,
But you said that you chose to attend the school. What did they have in the way of books?
very little. But some of the teachers were very good. The history teacher was a Methodist minister, and he really felt interested in history. He didn't believe in dates and sovereigns, the sovereigns. He taught you social history.
Yeah.
And we used the label down tin.
It's actually right on.
Right.
And I did my bookkeeping exam on
Where do you get your
what was
pencils?
in effect. Well, again, there was a very limited supply. There was
So you were saying you did your bookkeeping exam on?
on the sort of tissue paper almost.
Yeah.
I've still got it though somewhere.
Have you?
Yeah. But we had French, English, English language, English literature, maths and science.
One of the first things.
So really within the camp, you just ran your own affairs.
Yeah.
And Ian McKinnon came up because they went in batches, and when we got there, the usual Japanese command gave teachers for after that. And after the talk, Ian came along and gave us a cup of what we thought was tea. And he said, "Oh, don't drink it yet, let it settle." And it was, in those early days, there weren't these artesian wells that had been built. So it was like really muddy water. And you had to let the mud settle down
Oh
and
my
drank
goodness.
it.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So you survived. That's the
The thing is, the Japanese were quite happy to leave us to ourselves. We had our own bakery. Edmund worked in the bakery. Frank ended up in the kitchens.
Did the Japanese send supplies of limited
Oh, yeah.
supply? This is
And the whole point was young men like Frank became sort of quite enthusiastic about it. Ended up being head chef of the shift.
Yeah.
And they had people like Barraclough working for them.
Directors of big firms.
And Barraclough was the sort of man that you had to get an appointment to see his secretary,
He was your commis chef, was he?
That's right.
Yes, that's interesting, isn't it? As you say, in the camps.
I always say that we experienced true commerce, and it worked because there was an external constraint.
Yeah.
Everybody worked for the community to the best of their ability and with their particular expertise. Everybody was treated exactly the same way. There was at night, young, to tell his Christian name, and his wife, Lady Young. And we used to, as I say, pork was the only meat on, and they used to render the pork to get lard. And what was left was the actual crackers or crispy. And you have that on a piece of toast or a piece of bread, it's actually called. And she would turn and something like that. But within about 3 weeks, she's queuing up for the rest of the
Yeah, I bet.
to get her
Yeah.
share.
But you're quite right about common, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
To each according to their needs,
That's right.
and from each according to their abilities. That's what you
It
practice.
was true communism, and it worked.
And the funny thing is that this is a form of communism that never applied anywhere else.
Well, of course not. That's not.
It's unique. You certainly didn't find it Stalin as Russia.
And we used to have, each year we used to have sports day. The Japanese friends, they didn't treat us that bad. They treated 1 or 2 people bad. But most of our guards were, some of them were the Imperial Guards, the people that were wounded, and they were sent to. And with the exception of a few of the missionaries, nobody knew much about Yangchao where it was. And if you tried to escape, you had to scale the wall of the camp, which wasn't too hard, it's about 8 foot, 6 foot high. But that, the camp, the school itself was within the walled city of Yangchao, which had 25 walls controlled by Japanese guards. So virtually nobody tried to escape. So long as you behave yourself, the Japanese left you alone.
Well, I mean, if you and Frank and other people escaped, you had a chance of melting in the population of somebody else.
Exactly.
Just
But then being a family, so what would happen to your
Finest?
So that
Yeah,
was best.
yeah.
So there was basically little well, there wasn't any time. But there was a bad treatment. There was the chap called Mr. Savage, who was a qualified engineer on sewage, that's what camp drainage system. He had gone out to find equipment. On one occasion, whether he was caught talking to some monkeys or whatever, he was
So what, you were there for what? Nearly 3 years?
Yeah,
And what about heating in the winter?
wasn't any.
There wasn't any. Yeah.
You had a bucket of water in your bedroom. Next morning it was.
It was nice. So how did you cook?
Well, it was cooked. We never cooked individually,
No.
but we had reeds, huge kitchen coatings, like huge rocks, and part of the cook's job would be the day before to collect reeds and toast and whatever, and so guarded carefully for their own shift, and then early this morning, like fires. So we
where
used to
would
have.
you get it from? I mean, the
Oh,
reeds,
yes.
Where would they come from?
That was
Did you
supplied.
bought it?
Yeah, always supplied.
Yeah. So being a cook was good in the winter because you were warm.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
you
could eat.
the meals were served in big dixies about that size, about that deep. And the cooks and the stokers and people were the only people that could have a bath because we used to bathe in those dixies. So the water
You should have said, like they do in these films about police interviews, the suspect is now gesturing. he's
Yeah,
moving
exactly.
his feet
Yeah.
Yeah. 30 inches wide by 18 inches deep, though, yeah.
No, can I just chip
So
in here?
dark.
This is amazing. But our sister Beatty, because she was married to a gentleman who was being Chinese, she wasn't in town.
No, exactly.
And not only that, I think Paragraph, she probably had a tougher time outside.
That's right. In many ways.
Right.
See, food was scarce. We never really had enough to eat. But what we had was good. Every morning, without fail, you had cracked wheat. Now, nothing's healthier than cracked wheat. A
Yeah.
porridge made of cracked wheat.
Yeah.
Boiled in water. And if you found a maggot there,
That was protein.
it was protein. So you don't broadcast the fact that you had a maggot.
Yeah, you
You
can
know,
yourself.
And also kids up to I don't know what age, we used to grind soybeans to make soy milk.
And also
So
the
we're
goat
long
milk.
before anyone else thought of soy
And
milk.
the goat herd. Those goats milk as well.
That's right, yeah.
And then, about 3 days of the week or 4 days a week, we had SOS. Same old still, because that's all they could do. Same old still every time. And then the other days was vegetarian. And the Jewish community obviously didn't eat pork, so they had to live as vegetarians. And this woman, Takata or Tanata. Anyway, this Japanese supply officer, if anybody would have been strong enough after the war, he would have been strong enough. But he had enough sense of leave before the war finally. For instance, 1 year there was agreed that we would reduce our very meager ration of pork so that we could have a decent meal at Christmas, which is what happened. Right? Unbeknown to us, we found out afterwards that the International Red Cross had paid him to give us a good meal for Christmas. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so he was really, he was
Living
on the make.
dangerously.
Yeah, he was on the make all the time, and
Yeah.
there were a number of ex-soldiers and there were a couple of ex-regimental sergeant majors. They were strong. And we had one marriage in camp, Buldeck, who was a regimental sergeant major, and who married him now? Kemp? Is it Kemp?
No, Kemp was
Kemp.
Tebbets.
Yeah.
But when you say regimental, so was he for the active duty when he was in Ghana? Was he
No.
active?
So you obviously had some kind of priest or
Oh yes.
We had several.
Several priests.
Now this is again the sort of thing that annoys me about what has happened. Is churches stand out into the left of all the. We had this chapel. The church itself was taken over the Japanese as their influence, but we had this refectory called chapel. It was used for meals. On a Saturday, it was used by the Jewish community for their service. Early on a Sunday morning, it was used by the Catholics as a mass, and then at 11 o'clock, it was used jointly by the Methodists and Anglicans.
No, the church
So-
was lived in, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Matthews,
yeah.
Matthews, and
But there was part of it that exactly.
it wasn't truly communistic because all these higher up people, higher rank, had these better quality
Yes.
places to live.
Sure.
right.
But then going back to this building, and then on every so often, once every other month type thing, we would put on a concert. Homegrown
Yeah.
concert. So there's one building that had a multi-purpose.
Fantastic.
And why they don't do this with churches and all these things, I don't know.
I'll just turn this off. Okay, I'm just saying, what's the date today?
3rd of July.
3rd of July 2002. And it's Edgar and Frank and Lynn and Ray talking about the war, internment and things.
Have you turned it off?
No, it's on now. Just hopefully that's picked up.
Well, let's turn it off now.
Turn it off.
Have we finished?
Yes. Well, if you want to do your thing, we haven't got much time.
Come on,
Stop
switch it
off.
off. Sorry again, but I wanted to.